Welcome to the Bahamas High School Diploma Review Commission's Town Hall meeting. It's a meeting with members of the public to dialogue with Commission members as they review and possibly amend criteria for 12th grade students to earn a national high school diploma. This is a production of the Communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training.
Good evening. I'm Vaughn Albury. Welcome to the inaugural Town Hall meeting hosted by the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission. This is the first in a number of Town Hall meetings to be held here in New Providence, as well as the Family Islands. We will be going to all of the major Family Islands, including Grand Bahama, Abaco, Eleuthera, Exuma, as far south as Inagua. We want to begin tonight's meeting with a prayer led by the senior master here at the Anatol Rodgers High School, Mr. Lorenz Burrows. Mr. Burrows?
Good night, everyone. Let us bow as we pray. Heavenly Father, God, we give you thanks and praise for your many blessings, allowing us to gather here this evening to discuss matters as it pertains to our National High School Diploma. Father God, we ask that the spirit of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding guide our hearts, our minds, and souls and spirits as we deliberate. God, we ask your blessings and favor rest upon each and every individual that is represented here tonight, and we give you thanks and praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Senior Master, here at the Anatol Rodgers High School, Mr. Lorenz Burrows. I want to begin first by introducing our panel. This is an informational meeting on the 8 requirements necessary to earn the Bahamas High School Diploma. At my immediate left is Mr. Anthony Hamilton. Next to Mr. Hamilton is Dr. Beulah Farquharson of the University of the Bahamas. At Mrs. Farquharson's left is our Deputy Commission Chair, Mrs. Keishan Bastian. Next, the Chairman of the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission from Grand Bahama. We welcome Mr. Cecil Thompson. And next to Mr. Thompson is retired District Superintendent Dorothy Anderson, who is representing the Baptist schools. From the Planning and Research area of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training, and her job is to monitor and evaluate how education is delivered here in the Bahamas. We welcome Monique Wilscombe. These are our panelists. Let's give a hand to them, please. Also in our audience are top officials of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training, and we are so pleased that we have a number of parents out here tonight, here at the Anatol Rodgers High School. We now invite the Minister of Education and Technical and Vocational Training, the Honorable Glennis Hannah Martin, to share with us the purpose of the members of the Review Commission for the Bahamas High School Diploma. Minister Hannah Martin.
Greetings. I wish to thank the National Commission for the Review of the High School Diploma for their diligence in this process, which includes town meetings nationwide to obtain input from the wider population. This process is important because the diploma has far-reaching implications for our children and young people, and the voices of all stakeholders must be heard. This commission has been tasked with reviewing the objects and purpose of the high school diploma, studying its core criteria, and analyzing the impacts of these criteria in total or singularly, and to determine whether the objects and purposes are being achieved. Further, if deemed necessary and/or appropriate, the commission will submit its considered recommendations and/or observations to the ministry for reform or appropriate adjustments. The underlying purpose of this commission is to ensure that the prevailing criteria for the high school diploma maintains relevancy and are accurate reflection of student attainment in light of the progressive trends and evolving strategies in education, and in consideration of educational research, to ensure that our high school diploma reflects true attainment of the students and sets appropriate standards and best practices. The objective is to create the framework and to establish the foundation for our children to aspire for higher performance and to meet the objectively recognized standards. This is not an exercise to compromise standards. I have heard the voices of educators, parents, and students. Education is the key to national development and is germane to individual progress and a sense of self. This beloved nation of ours will be as good as the emerging generations are. How they are prepared and positioned and ethically grounded, how their enormous potential is refined and developed, is key to our nation's progress. The school campus, wherever it exists throughout our archipelago, and its captive audience of students, is an amazing and invaluable and exciting opportunity to tap into the incredible potential of our children and to help map out a future that our ancestors could only have dreamed of. I thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much, Minister Hannah Martin. Again, I invite you to focus your attention to the screen as we invite the chairman of the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission, Mr. Cecil Thompson, who will introduce his fellow commission members. Mr. Cecil Thompson.
Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training has sought to engage a cross-section of stakeholders in its efforts to address a comprehensive review of the Bahamas High School Diploma. It is with a sense of humility that I serve as the chairman of the commission. I am Cecil Thompson. Other commission members include Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary Kishan Bastian, representing the Ministry of Education; Elise Delancey, Bahamas Conference of Methodists, Division of Education and Training; Dorothy Anderson, Baptist Education; Claudette Roll, Catholic Board of Education; Italia Davis, Anglican Central Education Authority; Perry Cunningham, President, Bahamas Association of Independent Secondary School; Kirkwood Green, President, Bahamas Scholastic Athletic Association; Anthony Burrows, Seventh-day Adventist Schools; Dr. Beulah Farquharson, University of the Bahamas; Delano Archer Jr., Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute; Dr. Anthony Hamilton, President, Civil Society of the Bahamas; Mark Bettel, Ministry of Works; Belinda Wilson, President, Bahamas Union of Teachers; Sandra Major, President, Bahamas Educators, Counselors and Allied Workers Union; Stephen McPhee, President, Bahamas Educators Managerial Union; Crystal Rutherford Ferguson, President, Bahamas Chamber of Commerce Employers Confederation. Commission members representing the Family Islands include Hezekiah Dean, Grand Bahama; Iris Pinder, Long Island; Angela Roll, Andros; Janine Curtis, Exuma; Herbert Edgecombe, Abaco; Paul Tainquest, San Salvador; Johnny Butler, Eleuthera; Anne Willamay Bridgewater, Inagua. My fellow Bahamians, we have all made a commitment to engage all relevant stakeholders to ensure that our students throughout the length and breadth of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas have a chance to receive an equitable and quality education. We look forward to your partnership. Thank you.
Let's give it up for our commission members. Indeed, the work of the commission is to gather the information from members of the public, and you can email your questions, answers, concerns, recommendations to BHSDC@moe.edu.bs. We've now come to our first commercial break. We invite you to stay with us. You're watching the town hall meeting by the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission here at the Anatol Rodgers High School. We'll be back in a moment.
In an effort to invoke school pride in our public school students and encourage a greater awareness of their school's history, the communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training is organizing a school pride video competition throughout the Bahamas. All videos are to be produced by the students in collaboration with faculty from their respective schools. Completed videos must then be posted to the school's Facebook page with a tag to the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training's Facebook page. Winner of the primary, junior, and senior high schools will be determined by the number of likes received on Facebook. For competition guidelines, visit the Ministry of Education's Facebook page. Lights, camera, action! The Bahamas Learning Channel is back and revolutionized. The relaunch of the Bahamas Learning Channel is a timely, modern, and sophisticated undertaking geared towards the academic improvement of viewers of every age. New, creative, and imaginative shows are being added, and some of our most popular content is being upgraded. The Bahamas Learning Channel will provide engaging, cutting-edge, and interactive programs that will complement traditional classroom instruction and enhance the learning experience throughout our nation.
Welcome back. This is the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission's Town Hall meeting being held here at the Anatol Rodgers High School. We now invite the Commission Chairman, Mr. Cecil Thompson, to give his remarks. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Albury. Members of the National Review Commission, Mr. District Superintendent, education officers, principals, administrators, teachers, parents, guardians, students, PTA executives, school board chairpersons and representatives, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening.
Good evening.
As I indicated in our meeting with stakeholders earlier today, one of the humblest experiences that I've ever had 10 years after I retired from the public service. And one of the highest honors that has been bestowed upon me 15 years after I had been involuntarily separated from the Ministry of Education was that of being invited and appointed by the Honorable Minister of Education, Glennis Hannah Martin, to serve as the chairman of the National Review Commission. That is comprised, as you would have seen, of some of our country's most distinguished retired and serving educators, along with some of the Bahamas' most accomplished individuals from the public and private sectors. The members of the National Commission have been tasked, mandated, authorized, and directed by the Honorable Minister of Education to review all of the parameters and aspects of the Bahamas High School Diploma and to submit recommendations that will significantly ensure that a higher number of our students, your sons and daughters' parents, satisfy the requirements to obtain a Bahamas High School Diploma upon graduation from high school in grade 12. The Bahamas High School Diploma, in my considered view, is a noble national education initiative that was created by Bahamian educators, Bahamian stakeholders in education, specifically for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students. While it is not perfect in its present form, it is infinitely superior to the good old days when every senior and private school throughout our archipelago issued their own school-based high school diploma. The Honorable Minister of Education is to be highly commended, in my opinion, for constituting the National Review Commission with a view to addressing the defects and shortcomings of the Bahamas High School Diploma. A less concerned, a less caring Minister of Education would have done nothing. Finally, I'm pleased to report that our inaugural meeting with the leadership of education, by that our, I mean the commissions, with the leadership of education from R.M. Bailey Senior High School, Government High School, C.V. Bettle High School, and Anatol Rodgers Senior High School was an educational feast for me, serving up about 18, different delicious diets. I mean, the educators from those schools did our country proud today, and so did the commission members. And doing our country even prouder are you parents and guardians who are here tonight, because we are here not to hear from the Cecil Thompsons, but to hear from you, because your input, your contribution, your submission will inform the Commission's report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Thompson. Next, I want you to focus your attention on the screen, because when you walked in, we were presented with the 8 requirements for the Bahamas National High School Diploma. And we'll now have an explanation of the criteria by Mrs. Keishan Bastian, our Deputy Chair. Mrs. Keishan Bastian.
Welcome, parents. We are delighted that you are taking time to be with us today, wherever you may be, to get an understanding of what the Bahamas High School Diploma looks like and what the criteria are that your students are expected to satisfy. They're very simple, and we do it as a call of numbers: 4, 2, 27, 30, 90, 90, 20, and 3. That's it. That's all your children have to satisfy to earn the Bahamas High School Diploma. I'll break it down for you so that you can follow along and understand the minimum criteria that's been set. Students are required to earn 4 BJCs with a D grade minimum: mathematics, language arts, a science subject, and a social science or CTE subject. We've permitted a D grade as a passing mark because D is the middle of the BJC scale on the national level. And so students with 4 D grades minimum would have satisfied the BJC requirement. We move on next to the 2, a 2.0 cumulative GPA. That simply means that over the course of 3 years and typically 6 semesters, your student is expected to earn a minimum of a 2.0 GPA each term. We do understand that there are times when students may miss the mark. We've not set it at 2 point each term, we've set it at a cumulative of a 2.0 GPA. What that means is that in the first term of the Christmas term of grade 10, your student may miss the mark slightly, but they rebound in the second term of grade 10. They are well on their way. They are not penalized. The 2 point still stands. And so a minimum 2 point GPA. We've indicated also 27 credit hours. For most of us, credits are new. But if you've had a tertiary exposure experience, you will understand that when you go off to college or university, schools are looking at credits that are earned. What we tried to do was make our diploma not only relevant in the Bahamas, but relevant around the world. Most of our students are going to the US and Canada. Credit systems are what they will meet when they transfer. And so we've instituted credits at the high school level, indicating to our foreign partners that when our children are leaving high school, they are leaving with a minimum number of credits that will go toward transferability to a tertiary institution. 27 credits. We move on now to punctuality and attendance. The high school diploma is not only an academic perspective or satisfaction. We are asking students to be holistic. We are preparing our students for the workplace, and we want them to come out of high school well-rounded. And so we've set 90% punctuality and attendance as the minimum requirement for our students whose job is to come to school. What we are saying, therefore, is that if the child or the student is going to be absent, we understand illness, we understand there are going to be cases when they have to be off. We're asking parents to partner with us and send us a note. If your student is sick and the doctor provides a medical, send that to us. That's not counted against your child. What's counted against your child is when the student is absent from school and there's no documentation from the parent or guardian to say why the child is out of school. Once you write a note, it is covered. If we have a question, we will contact you. In the absence of the question being answered, it's recorded as an absent. Help us in that area. Send us a note. We've moved to community service and job readiness. We want our students to be well-rounded. We want our students to be patriotic. We want our students to be contributing citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And so we've instituted community service. What we're trying to do is to get our students to understand there is more to life than what we are paid to do. There's something called give back. And community service is our way to give back, to build that community spirit, to look out for the elderly in the community. We have said 30 hours minimum. In some institutions, it's up to 100, but in our system, it's only 30 hours. How can they earn it? They can do it at a child care center, they can do it at an old folks home, they can do it by cleaning up the school and the community. As long as it's not paid and the school approves it, it's counted. Industry has said to us, you're sending students to us, they are gifted, they are talented, they are intelligent, but we want to see some more refinement in their interpersonal skills. And so we've instituted, working with the National Training Agency, a job readiness component. And what that does for your child is assist them with understanding some of the dynamics of the workplace. How do you deal with conflict? How do you dress when you go to work? Why is it important to be on time? Only 20 hours. That's the expectation for your child, helping them to be more competitive when they enter the workplace. Finally, we want you to be an integral part of your child's success. And we have set 3 parent-teacher conferences as the minimum for you to come in and interact with the school. If we've learned anything from COVID-19, it's that you don't have to come face-to-face. It can be a Zoom meeting, it can be some teleconferencing, however the school deems necessary to interact with you. We are asking you as parents, engage with us at the school at least one time every academic year on your child's behalf, outside of report card day. Once you do that, once your student does that, they are well on their way to satisfying 4, 2, 27, 30, 90, 90, 20, and 3. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much. We do hope that you can partner with us, and we look forward to granting all of our students a Bahamas High School diploma.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, Mrs. Bastian. I want you to just turn your attention to the extreme left, where Mrs. Monique Wilscombe of the Planning and Research Division of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training. Her job is to monitor and evaluate how education is delivered in the Bahamas. Here is her presentation. Ms. Wilscombe.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will not go through all 8 of these criteria because we'll be here far too long, and none of us have time for that. So we will focus on the BJCs, the GPA, and attendance for this presentation. Now, the host said that I monitor how education is delivered in the Bahamas. I'm only one person. The Bahamas is an archipelago. It's quite an expanse. The only way I can do that is through the collection of data. I rely heavily on my primary sources. These are the professionals within the schools that record information on the students, and they would provide data. And also for this evening, we do have a survey. I hope that you were able to complete it. I would hope that you were able to scan the QR code that the lovely gentleman in blue at the door, Charles Major, he has the QR code, scan it, complete it, share it, so that we can get your input on what you think about the high school diploma. But before we have a conversation on the high school diploma, I want us to have context. Anyone can throw numbers at you. Numbers don't really mean anything. We can say 90% of this, 20% of that. You know, without context, it really has no value. So I would like to provide some context for what I'm about to share with you this evening. Now, this data, we have the benefit of hindsight. And for the high school diploma, we've been collecting data electronically for the last 3 years, since the 2019-2020 school year. So we have quite a bit of data. Not as much as I would like. I always like more data. I would love to have 100% representation, but we do have a very good sample of data. We have information on from more than 8,000 students over the last 2 years. So what we're sharing tonight is really a summary of what we have collected. Now, the first thing we're going to tackle is the BJCs. Now, in 2020, even though we were just starting the pandemic, our students still did very well. We had 3 and 4, so that's more, 77% of our student population attained the necessary 3 GPAs, the 3 BJCs. Sorry, it late. Attained the 4 required BJCs. I'm so glad you all have the picture, so you'll have to follow just my words. So 77%, which is more than 3/4 of 8,000 students that actually met the requirement. If the BJC requirement were to be lowered to 3, an additional 18% would have been able to satisfy that requirement. So that would be more than 95% of the students in 2020 that would have gotten at least 3 of the required BJCs, of those that actually passed BJCs. When we moved on to 2021, we see that the number shrunk a bit, but we were going through some trying times, Give us all a break. We all deserve a break. So the number went down to 70% of our students that got BJCs that actually got the 4 required BJCs. And if we look down to just 3, then it would be an additional 17% of those that passed BJCs that got the required BJCs. And in 2022, that trauma just has been adding up. So we have 57% of our students that got the 4 required, and an additional 24%, so that's almost 1 in 4 additional. If you drop it down to 3 BJCs, it would be an additional 24% that would satisfy the required BJCs. Now, when we look at the overall picture, And when, I don't know if you remember, but we have it listed here. The requirements are math, English, science, +1, and the +1 would be CTE or social science, which is religion. What's the other one? Religion and social studies. There you go. So we see that we have 2/3, almost 2/3 of all of the students over from 2020, so that'll be 2020, 21, and 22. 2/3, 2 and 3 students got the required 4 BJCs for the Bahamas High School Diploma. That would be those that got BJCs. When we drop it down to just 3 of the required, that would be an additional 20% that would be able to satisfy, and then 2 BJCs would be an additional 15%. So that would be almost every child that passed BJCs at least would fit into the pie. Now, when we start to look at BJCs by island, we see that different islands had different impacts. They had different effects. We see that Abaco, which was traumatized in addition to COVID, they had Dorian. So because of that, we expected these numbers to be what they are. And that would be 44% of our Abaco students would have satisfied the 4 BJCs. So in white, it would be those that got the 4, and when you add on the orange section, then that will show you how many students if we drop it down to 3%. Now we notice we have Grand Bahama Private, because we also have private schools that participate in the Bahamas High School Diploma data collection. Their results are a lot higher than our public school students, but I hasten to remind us that you have to, first of all, take an entrance exam to get into a private school, so they only get the top tier students in the first beginning, and then so we expect them to perform at a higher rate. If they were performing lower, then there should be a serious issue. We should all be concerned. And we see the same thing with our Nassau private schools that have almost 95% of their students that have BJCs, have the required BJCs. But we're still holding our own, I think. Eleuthera seems to be the strongest of the major islands in their BJC performance. And then when we go a little further, my geography sucks. When we go a little further south, that's Long Island, San Salvador, Exuma, Cat Island, and Andros, we see that the BJC results are a lot stronger on the family islands. You could have your own theories as to why that is. Now, when we look at our GPAs, which is the next criteria, we are asking that over a 3-year period, students get at least a 2.0. Now we see that the lowest GPA for when we compare the different graduating classes, it seems that 2018 had the lowest GPA, but that could be a reflection of the data, because in 2019 we were just starting to collect data. So the feedback and the information that we were getting was not as much. So that would be the smallest proportion of the sample would be from the class of 2019. So that may not be as accurate of a reflection. We require that data is put in from the 10th and the 11th grade. So we also have GPA data on our graduating class of next year and the following year. So how are they doing thus far? They seem to be doing quite well. So they are on an average over the 2.0 expectation. The strongest GPA period, as you can see, was 2020 and 2021. And when we break it down by islands, we see that there is quite a bit of movement in the GPA averages. Long Island seems to is working a bit hard at that, keeping the GPA, but they did have a very strong BJC result. So considering the strong BJC results, I could only assume that the GPA must be that that there was only a small amount of data in the sample. But we see that our students are all doing, for the most part, doing very well. So when we look at how many students got above a 2.0 GPA based on the class average, 80% of the graduating class that I have data on in 2019 got over a 2.0. And that 80% is also seen in the class of 2021, and we expect the class of 2024, which seems to be doing really well. We have 82% of that class that has a GPA in excess of 2.0. So now when we compare those that are doing well, those that are getting above 2.0 GPA and those that are getting below, we see the blue are those that are getting above, and we see the green are those students that seem to be a little bit more challenged and they probably need a little bit more support. But we expect, well, actually that's pretty good to have such a small percentage of students that are not doing as strong as they can be. Now, this slide takes into account our attendance. Now, when we talk about 90% attendance, to put that into perspective, 90% attendance for a year means that your student had no more than 18 unexcused absences. So anything more, so these students, these islands, this is the percentage of the students that had fewer than 18 unexcused absences. And as you can see, the lowest number is New Providence, with 70% of the students not being able to, having an excess of 18 absences. And just to support the discussion or to have data to back up the discussion, if you want to drop the attendance rate to 80%, and it seemed like Nassau was the one that needed that more than anybody else. But if you compare the 80% attendance compared to 90% attendance, and 80% means that the students got less than 36 unexcused absences. So yeah. So when we look at the class of 2019, you can see how the numbers vary for the different cohorts, and attendance is on a decline, but we know we had that virtual hybrid for 2020, 21, but we still managed to maintain 80% of the class. So that's 8 and 10 students, 4 and 5 students were able to get to class for the majority of the time, for more than 90% of the time. So that was still pretty good. It was only when we got back to 22, when we were back full face-to-face, it seemed that attendance averaged out at 3 and 4 students that were able to maintain a 90% attendance rate. So now when we look at this attendance data year by year, we can see if we drop it down to 70% attendance, almost everybody meets the criteria. That's 96%. That's for the class of 2019. For the class of 22, drop it down to 70%. Everybody's satisfied for the class of 2020. In the height of COVID, if we still would make what? Okay. For the class of 2021, we see that they manage 80% of the class managed to come to school 90% of the time. And those numbers dropped off a little bit for a class of 22. And we see with punctuality probably was the biggest challenge. Getting students on time to class was the biggest challenge for with the exception of 2020. It would be the biggest challenge for most every graduating class.
We want to thank you, Monique Wilscombe of the Planning and Research Unit that monitors and evaluates how education is delivered.
I do think it's acceptable, and personally I would say a 2.5 GPA, but a 2 point is fine. And the reason I say that is because we have to have a standard. We have to have where there's something to reach, there's a goal. We need to be able to attain, okay, this is the standard of the Bahamas. When they go into their personal life, career, business, that sets them up for that also. That transcends into the outer world, into after 12th grade. So when they go into college, a 2 point, they would know, okay, I need to achieve that. I've done it, so I can go above and beyond. And here in the Bahamas, we need to exceed expectations. So for me, a 2 point is where we need to be. And it pushes our kids, it pushes the parents to say, okay, this is what you need to work forward to. So yes, I do agree. 2 point is where we need to be and above.
I feel the 2.0 GPA is very easy to maintain because most colleges, they require a minimum of 2.0 GPA to achieve a degree. It's a universal requirement. So therefore, I feel that is a very comfortable standard that we should maintain.
That is very important because I know most of the administrative staff, and I know some of a teacher, I know the guidance counselor. Like right now, Aisha had a loss in the family, and the guidance counselor was very attentive, and she was able to feel comfortable to speak with the guidance counselor and get the help that she needs during a very, high pressure time. She's in grade 12, so it's a lot going on. So I'm very grateful that they're involved, and I have the opportunity to speak with them one-on-one if I have to. And I feel like the principal, everybody is a team player. They work together.
It's very important. The reason for this is the parental relationship between the parent and the child, for me, is very important. Even though it's PDA conference, it's also child to the parent. It starts off from there first, and it's indicative of a strong relationship. Me as a mother, I would like to know where my son stands and where does he need to grow, what level he's on, and that prepares him for the future. Then for me, with the parent, as the parent with the teacher, then that transcends with the teacher. She's then going to let me know this is where he really stands, because he can say one thing, but the teacher then will say, okay, this is where he stands. This is where he needs to go. This is how we can do it as a community, as a group, as a family. And for me, it's very important. And that's why my son is where he is at right now, because of the PTA, the parent-teacher, and also the parent and the child. So for me, that's very important for our generation and our future.
Welcome back. You're watching the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission's Town Hall meeting. We're coming live from the Anatol Rodgers High School on Faith Avenue South. It's now time for the participation of our parents gathered here. But first, I want to go to my colleagues where we have a number of emailed questions for our panel. I will begin with my colleague, Denise Pratt.
Thank you, Vaughan. Okay, our first question that was sent in, it says, looking at the criteria, why do students need the non-academic components like attendance, punctuality, community service, and job readiness? For our panel?
Our chairman and co-chair, please decide who will answer that question.
I will address that
That's
question.
right. Mrs. Dorothy Anderson, a retired district superintendent.
And in compliance with the Ministry of Education's graduation requirements, every student must complete a minimum of 30 hours of unpaid community service involvement activities. 20 hours of job readiness training, which focuses on interpersonal training during the family life and health classes. And additionally, students must maintain a 90% rate of attendance and punctuality. The non-academic graduation requirements are aligned with the Ministry of Education's vision that all students who pursue academic excellence must also be given the opportunity to develop holistically, demonstrating a global perspective and community responsibility. The requirement also promotes transfer of responsibility. It gives our students the opportunity to be responsible and to develop positive attitudes of accountability in preparation for employment. The attendance and punctuality only reflects those instances of unexcused absences where there has been no communication between the parent, guardian, and the school. For example, no notes sent, no calls made to the school. And right now, teachers do WhatsApp with their homerooms. No medicals would have been submitted. The punctuality criteria seeks to deter students from hanging around when they should be in school. And we all see that on our streets. If you go on the street anytime after 9 a.m., you see students hanging out on the buses or hanging out at the food vendor stalls. Community service minded gives back to the greater good. The opportunity for students to experience and celebrate the contributions they can make in supporting and strengthening their communities. And job readiness training, students are given the opportunity to learn those soft skills, those social skills that are needed for the work environment.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kemp Anderson. And now we go to Mrs. Adama Williams.
Thanks. Another emailed question. It is unfair to penalize students if a parent opts not to engage with the school. This parent is asking, how can that be fixed?
It is not the intention to penalize our students, but to seek to ensure that there is deliberate dialogue with parents and the school. Schools are only seeking engagement once per year outside of report card day. So this is not a tall order. Where at risk students may exist, schools can assign a teacher or counselor, even the clergy and other significant others to aid in this regard.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beulah Farquharson. Denise Pratt, another question?
Okay, the question is, there seems to be some issues with students having all information submitted to the Ministry of Education that's needed to secure diplomas. Why does the Ministry of Education take so long to get the graduation list completed?
The process of issuing diplomas starts at the school and it resides at the school. The ministry is responsive to submissions from the school. And one of the reasons why we're delayed, if submissions are not made as timely as they should be, then our response to the submission of data follows suit. And so if data is due to be submitted in totality by the 30th of April each year, for us to be able to turn around by June, where that information is not readily available at April 30th, it means that all timelines are going to be pushed back. And so unfortunately, if the school is delayed in getting the information to the ministry, diplomas are going to be delayed in the turnaround. The intention is not to disadvantage students, however, so in instances where we would have had students who are transitioning to a tertiary institution and require some documentation that they successfully completed high school, provisions have been made, however, to address those needs on a case-by-case basis.
Again, you're encouraged to email your questions, concerns, and/or recommendations to bhsdc@moe.edu.bs. Again, bhsdc@moe.edu.bs. Mrs. Williams?
Private schools have their own diplomas. Why can't each government school set its diploma requirements as they used to before the high school diploma?
I happen to have been the principal of Hawksbill High, at the time, was the largest school in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. In Grand Bahama, we had two high schools, 8 Mile Rock High School and Hawksbill High. And I always use an example. The former director, Iris Pinder, was at 8 Mile Rock, and two government schools on the island. We had certain things in common: the grade point average, punctuality, and attendance, but everything else was internal, right? Now, I speak from first-hand experience. I'm not one of the founding fathers. Could not be one of the founding mothers, but I'm not one of the founding fathers of the Bahamas High School Diploma. I speak from personal, long-standing experience. The Bahamas High School Diploma is superior for what we did back in the day. It might seem simple. Every school issued a high school diploma. What happens when our kids or students matriculate overseas? The former director of education, Lionel Sands, says it presented a huge problem. He got calls from admission registries all over the place. What is where the Bahamas stands? I have a student from 8 Mile Rock with a different standard from a student from Hawksbill High, and so forth across the board. And so while I know we like to look back and reflect on the good old days, it wasn't better than it is today. That is my considered opinion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. And again, as our Minister Glenys Hannah Martin said, this is not an exercise to compromise standards. This is what the new Bahamas High School Diploma, this is what the Review Commission is all about. They're taking suggestions from you as to where to go, whether to amend the Bahamas High School Diploma or to keep it as is. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to another break. Next, when we come back, we will invite members of our audience, particularly parents, to pose their questions. You're watching the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission's Town Hall meeting from the Anatol Rodgers High School. We'll be back in a moment.
This public service announcement is brought to you by the Communications section of the Ministry of Education in conjunction with this channel.
Hi, my name is Pauline Davis Thompson, better known as Golden Girl Pauline, a proud Baintown girl. And this community helped me to become who I am. I got a great education through the public school system, and you can too. I am here to tell you that great education is your #1 tool to get you out of your circumstances. My future Bahamian leaders, you must take your future in your own hands. The word education means E for excellent, D for dedication, U for unique, C for create, A for achieve, T for timeless, I for interaction, O for observe, and the big one, N, which means never, never, ever, 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 ever give up on yourself, because your future is in your own hands. Come a little closer. Please come a little closer. Come a little closer. Never, ever, 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 ever give up on yourself, because your future is in your own hands. Once you get a great education, no one can cut you open and remove it.
This public service announcement was brought to you by the Communications section of the Ministry of Education in conjunction with this channel.
And attendance for sure, because if you miss out on a classwork for that day, you would have lost so much information, and to try to catch up, it's a very hard thing because you already have to maintain so much. So I think it's very important. I guess attendance to me isn't just showing up physically, I think attendance to me is being prepared mentally to give your best and to exert energy so that you can get the best of whatever you're putting your hands to do.
You're watching the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission's Town Hall meeting, coming live from the Anatol Rodgers High School. In this section, we now invite parents to pose your questions. So I would like to invite you, please identify yourself and pose your question. Good evening.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana, and I have a sister that attends the Anatol Rodgers. Her name is Shalanda. But I have a few questions. First and foremost, what I heard tonight was the Bahamas high school diploma. Y'all started this about 3 years ago. So that would have made the children that are now in grade 12, they had to, I guess, in the 10th grade, they had to experience, I guess, getting their works together to be qualified for their diploma. Now, during the time of COVID, I'm sure a lot of parents can attest to this. A lot of teachers were not trained to deal with online schooling. That had affected my sister grades, you know, and we can't go back in the past to get those grades back. That has some impact of the grades that she now has. So in a case like that, what do you have in place for the students so they can basically get some form of credit to repair the grades that they had lost? Because there were issues with the internet. They would be online and they can't get on. So the teacher would say, well, there's nothing we can do now. I can give you a grade to make back up. She would make up the grade, and then the grade is lost in the system. And now you're in the 12th grade. You have BGCSEs. You have job readiness. You have 3 hours of community service. How are they supposed to get all these things in time before June so they can be ready for graduation?
Our committee, commission.
Good evening. Thank you for the question. The point that you made about the start of the high school diploma, it started in 2014. The first cohort of graduates would have been 2017, class of 2017. If your sister, you said, is a student at Anatol, Anatol has been very good at communicating with parents the expectations and making provisions for students to be accommodated. So when you talk about things like community service and job readiness, a lot of that can be done, the community service, for instance, at the school level. So I don't think that should impede your sister.
Sorry, I don't want to stop you, but I'd have to put that in. In terms of community service, she did 30 hours, okay, and all that information was lost. So in a case like that...
When you say it's lost, you're talking about a system error?
Well, once you do a community service, whichever establishment you did the community service, there's some sort of form that they fill out to say, well, you did the 30 hours of communication, community service, and that would be returned back in the school. That was lost.
Okay, so what I would suggest that you do is, it sounds like there's a personal issue that's happening with the school and the institution where the student did community service, and so I'd advise you to speak to the counselor or the grade level administrator to see if they can bring remedy to that. I thought you were referring to data being lost in the system, but you're talking with the corporate sponsor that she worked with?
Yes.
So I would advise you to speak with the school administrator or year head who's responsible and see if we can bring resolution to that on a personal level. But generally speaking, when you talked about community service, there are provisions for students to do it at school, and so they are not penalized. And because of COVID, the hours were reduced, and students were allowed also to participate virtually in exercises. So they were not disadvantaged in that regard.
Okay.
You had another question?
Yes, one more. I'm going to leave because I know other parents have questions. Y'all said that the high school diploma is superior to the previous diploma. In which way is it superior? Because if you're attending college or university, how is the diploma more superior? By which standards? Is it because of the GPA?
Mr. Chairman?
First, let me comment on the first question you raised. This is Bastian address. Let us put it on the table. Since 2019, if you, a parent in the Grand Bahamas, Abaco, you would have been affected by a Category 5 plus hurricane. And rolling into 2020, you have the pandemic and all of that. So over a period of 3 years, no student, no person in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas has ever faced the challenges that students have faced in our country since 2019 in the Northern Bahamas and all over the Bahamas since 2020. And so I see where you were coming from. It seems to me that you were raising the question about what is the commission going to do about who may have qualified since 2017 for high school diploma, and it is slow in coming. That's what I understand. That's what you were asking?
You're on the right path.
Look into that. Now, as far as the second question you raised, how it is superior.
Yes.
It is superior in the sense that we have one measuring stick, the high school diploma. The academic component is the 4 BJCs. I just happen to believe it is within the capacity of every student, or the vast majority of students in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, who apply him or herself to satisfy that one, the 4 BJCs, right?
Yes, but y'all have 4 BJC listed, but I don't see any particular BJC, so has that changed, or?
If you refer to when you came in, they would have given you a document, but at the school level, the school has been communicating, and I think when I did the introduction with the presentation of the criteria, I would have mentioned what they were, but at the school level, that's echoed daily. It's math, language, science, or social science, CTE subject. Students are expected to have 3 primary subjects, math, language, science, +1. And so across the country, there's a +1 for all of them. Those are the 4.
Okay, so
but what I'd advise you to do before you leave, at the table at the back, the criteria is available. Please take a copy with you so that you can also have something to refer to for your reference moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Sir, go ahead. Your name, please?
Good evening, panel. My name is Marvin Pinder. I have 2 nephews that attend LW Young. I just had 2 hopefully quick questions. The first being, why was the BJC chosen over the BGCSE? I know that the BGCSE exam usually represents the exam, at least the knowledge level exam at that level. And then the second being that for a young adult, and I'll use that phrase, young adult, in this case, if they fail to acquire the diploma during their stay at high school, what is the recourse for them to get the diploma after they would have, I guess, left high school?
Mr. Thompson, you want to take that one? Why choose the BJC, the junior examination, as opposed to the senior exam, BGCSE, in order to earn the Bahamas high school diploma? Why?
The director of record is Mr. Lionel Sands, retired. And he made a presentation to the commission about 3 weeks ago. And he noted that the O-levels that most of us took, whose hairs like mine, was a British exam.
I'm getting it.
Intended for 20% of the population, right? And we embraced that when we were part of the British Empire. And after the British discontinued it, because they realized they couldn't move forward into the 21st and the 20th century if they only catered to 20% of the population. Once they discontinued it, we were forced, obligated, to come up with our own exam, hence the BGCSE. He said the BGCSE is the next word or next exam similar to the O-levels, targeting 20% of the population. This country will not move forward if we didn't attempt or endeavor to take care a larger percentage to the student population, right? Yeah. The minister in her address said this is not an attempt to lower the standards. We want to maintain the standard, and it is the minimum. It's not the maximum. Asking for 4 BJCs, I don't believe that's asking for the moon. That has to be within the reach of the vast majority of our students who apply themselves, right? Yet, students could continue to take the BGCSE, right? There's a place in the country for the BGCSE, but there's a place in the country for the school diploma, a national high school diploma. That's the difference. The parent asks in the school high school diploma, it's not been better. Humble opinion, national diploma is superior to the individual diplomas that have been generated by the individual schools.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Sir, your question?
Good.
Sorry.
Evening.
Hold on, just a second, sir. Mrs. Bastian?
To follow up on the second part of the question that was asked, he asked about a GED program. And so to support what Chairman Thompson indicated, the BJC exam is a standardized national competency that we can look at that levels the playing field across the country. It's not subjective, it's intended to be more objective in its output. And when we look at the exit exam of the BJC, while we do have support for it, it is a 12th grade exit exam, which means that results are going to come in at the end of the 12th grade summer period. Most students are needing credentials prior to that time. And so that is one of the reasons to support what Chairman said about using the BJC. It's a standardized national exam in the absence of another national perspective. Relative to the GED as we know it coming out of the U.S., at present, the Ministry of Education has not employed any focus at this point on offering the GED at our level. There has been conversation about making the possibility available through industry. And so the policy, there was work on a policy position to permit industry to offer a GED to students who would have exited high school without a diploma. It's not been finalized, but there has been conversation about it, and certainly the Commission has started to talk about it as well. As we are updated, we'll advise. Thank you, too.
Thank you, sir. Sir, your question?
Good evening. My name is Ken Tinker. I have a stepson here at Anatol. I have like 2 questions. First one, I must commend Mr. Thompson. You know how to defend your brother. I mean, any questions on why it should be settled at this point? I do see the value and the importance of having a uniform way to calibrate what our children did, for the last 3 years of their school life. With that, does this replace all diplomas, or I guess for all schools, or is it that the schools would have to meet this criteria and still distribute their own diplomas? How is the whole mechanism of it done?
Mrs. Bastian?
Our independent schools still issue supplementary documents in addition to some of them, the National High School Diploma. Okay. All public schools are expected to issue 1 diploma, which is the Bahamas High School Diploma. And the reason for that, like Chairman would have indicated, we want to ensure that students coming out of MyCal are credentialed the same way a student coming out of New Providence would be. What we have found, however, is because the high school diploma speaks to the minimum standards, most of what we're referring to in our independent schools would be satisfied at 9th, 10th grade. And so you'd find that in addition to what we have, our criteria would, for the most part, be incorporated in what students have to satisfy in independent schools. But the expectation for them is that it's going to be satisfied much earlier than the 12th grade. And so to answer your question, public schools, entirely 1 document. Independent schools have subscribed. In any given year, we've had up to 16 schools that have subscribed, and in addition to their document, they have also issued a Bahamas National High School Diploma.
Okay, excellent. Your third number here, 27 credits, how are those calculated? Is it like by certain courses that they take, or how was that done?
So I'm only answering because I'm the ministry's representative, and my colleagues are experts in industry, and so they are very well versed in the subcommittees that they will be working on, and they are tasked to look at each component of the diploma. And so you would just bear with me for answering, because we have expertise resident from civil society, from the University of the Bahamas, from the various denominational institutions, from our labor unions, and so I'm only answering as the ministry's representative. So when we look at the credits are allocated based on students passing a subject. The purpose of credits was to ensure that when our students took their transcripts with them to tertiary institutions abroad, there was a value on the document, that a language on the document the tertiary institutions would understand. When you enter university, you're given credits for subjects that you're studying. Our transcripts did not reflect that, and so our former director noted, in the person of Mr. Sands, calls were coming in trying to understand what does this report card or this transcript mean in the absence of credits. And so it was added in that regard. A student earns a credit for every subject that's passed with a C grade or better. Because we were not using an information management system when the program started, credits were not allocated based on hours in a course. It was allocated based on a pass or fail. If you passed a core course, you earned 0.5 per term, 1 credit per year. And if it was a general course like a Bahamian history and civics, you earned 0.25 or a half credit for the year. In total, students were expected to earn 27 credits. They could earn a minimum of 27, but they could earn up to 9.5 per school year.
Okay. All right. So this could basically be looked at as an indirect form of accreditation for college or university?
It's a language that's understood. Let's put it like that. Because if we do a conversion and we had to convert those credits to actual contact hours, we could say for every 1 credit course that they took, we could equate that to the number of hours or periods they spent a week, and we could actually give a value that exceeded 27 that a tertiary institution would understand.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ms. Pratt?
Okay, there is a question, a live question from the audience. And a parent is concerned because they have had challenges with the online system. As a result, their child has an incorrect GPA, incorrect attendance, and incorrect punctuality record. It seems that the teacher is unable to resolve the matter because it is a computerized system. What can the parent do to rectify this problem?
Anyone on our panel?
This is the system that, and I smiled when I looked down at Madam President because I am remembering her comments earlier today, which I will not share in this space. The EMIS is our information management system, and with any new organism, there are growth challenges, and the EMIS has experienced similar challenges. However, students should not be disadvantaged because every student should have a hard copy of the file or the documents that schools are working with. And so in an instance where documents are incorrect, the power lies resident in the school for those documents to be corrected. Be it so that it may take longer to do so, it is not impossible to be done. And so the system is digitized, data in, data out. We put it in. And so if it's taking long to change it in terms of correcting the system, and the student is in need of an immediate remedy, the school has the power to do that because the resident in the school is the data that generated the report card that's in EMIS. And so we would have to have a conversation. The focus is not EMIS in terms of the system itself, but there is a remedy available for that. If you'd like to, we can speak after the meeting, and I would certainly give you guidance on how to address that at the school level.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Williams?
This question is from the audience. Will there be a different diploma issued to students who are in the lower streams? There are students who are doing foundational work and excelling in that area, making excellent GPAs. But there are students who also do well in BHSD level classes, making the same GPAs or sometimes lower, and those students feel cheated. Also, when the same diploma is issued for both groups and they enter the workforce or university with no distinction, institutions feel that they all perform at a given level. What can or will be done to address this? And come to find out, this is not the case.
Panel? Mrs. Bastier?
We have a subcommittee that's heading that, the criteria and literature. Mrs. Wilson represents that committee, but Ms. President Wilson, are you comfortable with commenting on that?
I work on a subcommittee that's chaired by former Director Iris Pinder, and we are working on the 8 listed criteria, and I'm stating to you that we are looking out for the benefit of the students. So rest assured that whatever the criteria is that we'll be recommending is going to be for the benefit of the students. And we will also give our recommendations as for situations similar to persons who would have graduated or were supposed to receive a diploma previously. We will also give our recommendations on how that can also be rectified.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Belinda Wilson, President of the Bahamas Union of Teachers. And now I invite you to focus your attention on the screens again as we hear from parents on one of the criteria for the Bahamas High School Diploma.
Job readiness skills in our high school is very, very important. And I don't think we have it enough or implement it enough in the schools, because some of the kids, they don't even know what it is to fill out an application for a job. Whether they're going off to college or not going off to college, it prepares them for the workforce and equips them for their life. They should get disciplined with punctuality, being on time, and communication with the customers or the workers, their own peers, because a lot of the kids, it's like they're not learning this at home. So if it's done in the schools, they will definitely know how to deal with the public, whether it's working at McDonald's or being a CEO of a company.
Welcome back. You're watching the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission's Town Hall meeting. We're coming live from the Anatol Rodgers High School, Faith Avenue South. Dr. Beulah Farquharson of the University of the Bahamas wanted to comment about different pathways to for the diploma. Dr. Farquharson?
Yes, the lady from the audience was talking about students who maybe are functioning at a lower level and have been excluded from being able to access the Bahamas High School Diploma. And so in the commission, we do have a committee that is focusing on inclusion. Currently, the high school diploma addresses 2 pathways, one for academic and the other for workforce. We have been asked to broaden the perspective of special needs, and this will include students with disabilities who currently cannot access the high school diploma because of the requirements that are out of their reach. There are students who are, of course, who are slow learners, like the lady said earlier. There would also be students who we call second language learners, who have been having problems accessing the high school diploma. Children from inner cities and from the inner city with socioeconomic issues, and they have a whole myriad of problems and issues that they're not even responsible for, and as a result, they have not been able to access the Bahamas High School Diploma. And so our committee is charged with the responsibility of looking at maybe some additional opportunities, and what we're calling them is additional pathways. These do not necessarily fall within the current requirements of the attendance requirements, the policy, the parental requirements, the 4 BJC requirements. We have really been looking at this, and our goal is to really challenge the government to include those thousands of students who have been excluded. And so we are looking at some very interesting ways, some other standards, some other standardized means. And so we believe that we would be able to make some excellent recommendations so that we would be more inclusive, and where we could definitely suggest some principles of equity within the Bahamas High School Diploma.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beulah-Farkas. And again, this meeting is about getting your input also. So if you have concerns and/or recommendations, you can email your comments to bhsdc@moe.edu.bs. Now our next question from the floor. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, panel. My name is Siobhan Lucius. My daughter, she attended CB Bethel 2019. She made all the requirements and everything, and she had to take summer classes to make up. But from her grades, that's why she took the summer classes, but they still didn't grant her her diploma. I want to know why they didn't give her the diploma to walk, or not even say the diploma to walk, because I know with the results coming out after graduation, I know she couldn't walk, but I just want to know why she was defaulted that diploma.
So we can't, because your daughter's case is an individual matter, we'll have to address what else may have been outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, if a student is deficient in an area that's not academic, the student may not have satisfied. I'm not going to speak to what could possibly have happened, because we'll have to look at your daughter individually to determine why she may not have earned the diploma.
Okay.
In instances where students are seemingly having satisfied all the criteria and a diploma is not issued, we have a back-end data issue, which is not on you. That's something internal at a school level that has to be addressed. I cannot speak to why the diploma was not issued, but if it wasn't released, it means that on our records at the ministry, something for that student was not satisfied. And so when you say that she completed, something on our end was indicating that she's not. Something was still deficient, remained deficient.
Okay.
And generally, that's what typically happens. So that's an individual situation, but if you give us the name at the end, we could certainly check to see what the deficiency may have been and what could possibly have happened.
Okay.
All right?
One more question.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have 4 kids, 4 children, and every school, my older boys, every school that they went to, don't care what happened to the school, in the school or what have you, the guidance council or the teacher or what have you, they would call the parents if they're slacking off or what have you. My daughter, she went to CB Bethel. That's one of the high top schools. That's the best top school. You know that? Sorry, second. I'm sorry, the second best school.
We forgive you. We forgive you. You forgot where you were.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The school, they saw her falling. Why didn't, I know they have a lot of children to deal with, but they have a guidance counselor. Sometimes I go to the school too. I go to meetings, you can't talk to any of the teachers. I've been there after the meeting, you go to ask for the teachers to see what is falling in the areas. Nothing. The teachers are never there. I know they're tired, it's late, and they have to go home and deal with their own stuff, their own business and what have you. But like parents like me, I cannot talk to the teachers one-on-one. Sorry, I have to call another school. CC Sweden, T.A. Thompson, the teachers are there. I'm sorry, the teachers are there. CB Bethel, they never there. I'm sorry. And I think that is why, just to get that one-on-one, even sometimes like when I go there through the day, you cannot disturb the class, but you only could talk to the guidance counselor. They only know so much. And I need to know why you cannot get in contact with them like that. Because because I didn't have to be here tonight to try and plead my daughter's case to get a diploma.
So I'm going to take a lesson from my my good colleague, Dr. Hamilton on today, and I would permit him if he would, but I'm going to take a lesson from him on today. And let me extend apologies to you for not being able to access the teachers at that school. Be advised that the relevant persons are here to hear your concern, and I'm certain that it will be shared with the leadership of the school. I do note that schools, you know, it can become cumbersome, teachers can become overwhelmed, but it doesn't exclude us from the parental involvement and our ability to communicate with you. And so, you know, we have to find a way to remedy it. I don't have an answer for you tonight on a remedy for it. I'm happy to hear you say that you reached out to the school. I'm happy to hear you say that you were one of the parents that participated in the parent-teacher interactions.
Always, all the time.
And so, that being said, we can hear that you made an effort, and so now we have to find out why is it that on our end we dropped the ball. And so we apologize in that regard. District Superintendent is in the house, and so we will ask that your concerns be shared. And so to your daughter.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bastian.
Thank you.
Ma'am, before you go, your concerns have been noted and will be passed on to the leadership at that school.
Thank you so
You
much.
will be answered.
Yes, thank you.
Your concerns will be answered. Thank you very much. This is what this meeting is all about, to gather information and/or recommendations for the Bahamas National High School Diploma. Sir, your question.
Good night, all. My name is Daniel Small, Attendance Officer with the Ministry of Education. First and foremost, let me say that I appreciate the work of the Commission, and I am sure that it is their intention that no child be left behind, and I applaud them for that. I do realize, though, being on the ground in attendance, that there are many anomalies, much more than I think we realize there are. There are a lot of delinquent parents, and so many children don't get to school on time. So even in the survey, I had to question the punctuality, you know, because of the delinquent parents. Sometimes they have their children dropping the other children to school before they go to school. So there's a whole lot. Now, I'm wondering if the Commission has taken all these things into consideration, because really the child would be penalized unfairly if they don't get the diploma under those circumstances. And
mouth too big. I think Dr. Bueller-Farquharson answered that question before, and the President of the Bahamas Union of Teachers indicated quite accurately, in my view, that this commission is pro-students. This commission is pro-students. We will take into consideration what is in the best interest of the child, period. Now, as far as attendance is concerned, I thought you're in better shape now than when I used to be the Deputy Director in charge of Special Services. I heard recently the ministry announced you had about 20-something new attendance. 25 attendance officer. When I was in the ministry, I thought we needed a small army. When one considers the numbers of students you would see on the streets after 9 o'clock. But parents need to do discharge their responsibility more seriously so that the child is not penalized either intentionally or otherwise. Okay?
Agreed. I agree with that, sir. But as I previously noted, there are delinquent parents. There are parents who are not around. There are parents who don't care. And so the child is carrying, in some cases, the child has to act like the parent in the home. And so it's not the child's fault. And I understand that the parent is supposed to do so much, but when the parent isn't there, because the question still needs to be answered, how is the ministry collecting this data to say, okay, these particular students may be disenfranchised because they have delinquent parents or certain things are not in place in the home for them to get to school on time or for them to get to school regularly, or maybe there's financial challenges. How is the ministry collecting this data? This is my question.
All right, so the way data works, Ms. Wojcicki is representative of the data that's coming into school. So there are a couple things I'm hearing you say. You're talking about students being penalized for punctuality and attendance when the parents are deficient. In an instance where schools, and I think Dr. Farquharson mentioned it earlier, realize that students are at risk, there are opportunities for counselors, for teachers to reach out and say, listen, I know that Keishan is affected by a parent that is not coming. And so the school can put measures in place to address children that fall within those parameters. That's the first one. When we look at the statistics, however, more than 85% of our students are not disenfranchised with their diplomas because of punctuality and attendance. Even though we recognize that it is a challenge, most of them are not missing the diploma because of punctuality and attendance. So while that is an issue, we have a concern with it, there's a need to address it. That is not the most critical thing that's causing them not to be successful. The data is captured at the school. We have morning registration, afternoon registration, class registration. So schools are expected to input data that way, and that is how the information is captured. Do we recognize that we have socioeconomic issues and other parameters or prevailing issues that are affecting students? Certainly we do. And we do have committees in place, subcommittees in place that are looking at it. And so I'm hearing you ask us for a remedy to it tonight. I think that's a part of the consideration for the committee. I don't think we have a remedy for you tonight, but we do note your concern for further discussion during the course of our work.
Thank you very much, sir. And now, sir, behind on my right.
Good evening.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much. My name is Richard Hanna. I have two questions for the committee. One is, have there been any consideration to taking the BJC twice a year? I felt, just like Mr. Thompson said just now, we are for the student. I believe that we can do our students a great service if we would allow to take the BJC twice a year. I know it's expensive and I know it is required of space. And so I just wanted to suggest maybe you don't have to do the whole cohorts of BJCs, just the basic basic BJCs for the diploma. And also, you don't have to let the whole population do it. Maybe just those students that have tried in June and they were not successful, and maybe they have an opportunity to do it again, while it's still good in their minds. But I really wish that this committee would give some consideration to taking the BJC twice a year.
The conversation did come up today, sir, so you must have been in the room. That was tabled today we had a stakeholder meeting today, and that was one of the matters that came up, so the point is noted.
Okay, thank you. The other question that I have, we are creatures of habit. We start this punctuality and attendance, that start way back in primary school. And the diploma is a high school diploma. But I really wish this committee would also consider things that can be done to bring up from primary school. Okay, for example, just an example. So we have 27 credits. 9 credits for primary school, 9 credits for junior school, 9 credits for senior school. Boom, you have 27 credits. But it would allow parents then to break this habit of absenteeism, because we find in it coming up into the high school that it's very difficult to break. We also find that behavioral issues is difficult to break in high school if we haven't dealt with it in the primary school, junior school. Reading deficiencies, numeracy deficiencies, we need to start to deal with them in the primary school. And I'm hoping that this committee would consider some type of tracking or some type of accountability for primary school, junior school, and senior school. And I think it'll take a lot of the load off the high school if we can put some of the weight on in the junior school. Thank you ever
sir.
so much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our town hall meeting here at the Anatol Rodgers High School. I now invite our chairman to give his final remarks. Chairman Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Albury. Before I do, I beg your indulgence. In the audience tonight is one of my mentors, Mrs. Carol Hanna, former Deputy Director of Education, who established testing and testing and evaluation. Lionel Sands and Leroy Sumner, and a long, long list. I invite her to bring some remarks if she may.
Okay, Mrs. Carol Hanna, please, brief remarks. Mrs. Carol Hanna, you move to the microphone.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to, first of all, congratulate the team that is looking at the Bahamas High School diplomas. This was one of my babies many years ago, and then they brought it back again. I want to be the devil's advocate to you all tonight, though, if you don't mind, because this particular commission now has the opportunity to do something that will last and last and last. And that is to take the bull by the horn now and to not only look at this high school diploma. You got to do something else. We're always patching things. Let's fix it. And to fix it this time, you need to go back down to the primary, the junior high, and come up to this high school diploma, because COVID has taught us a lesson. And whether you agree with it or not, we have hundreds of children through the cracks now. The attendance officer was quite right. I just pointed out to my daughter a week ago, coming through Taylor Street at 1 o'clock in the day, there were at least 25 or 30 young children playing on the ground, kicking ball and what have you, and it was school. But I don't want to hold you up, but since this commission is in place, please look at re-establishing assessment and evaluation in our schools. Go back. Tell them you need to look at the GLAT. And you need to look at the GLAT. GLAT was never intended to be a competition. It was an assessment so that you could determine how to improve upon the student's grades. I am suggesting that GLAT should now be done at grades 3, 6, and 8. Now, my devil's advocate is, what is the real relevance now of BJC? Think about it. Don't row about it or anything, but think about it. The preference I am seeing now is that grade 9 should begin the year when you begin to look at focusing on what's going to happen to these children at the end of grade 12. BGCSE, yes, that's fine. But SAT, ACT now, stop worrying about those. The big universities and colleges, they're not worrying about SATs and ACTs anymore. They're worrying about what did you do in school. grades 1 to 12. They're looking at the holistic way of bringing children or our students into university. So I wish that you all would just take the bull by the horn. Our minister is a great lady. She will listen. Take it. You can't do it within a year, my dear, but over the next 3 years, it can be done. Start to doing it step by step. We have Bahamian teachers, retired and presently working, who can sit and work and get it done. My good friend Belinda up front would see that the teachers will get it done. There are those of us who are retired. Yes, my legs are not good now, but not a thing wrong with my head.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
And so if you want help, ask for it. But please, please, let's build up testing and assessment where it should be, starting at the bottom, coming to the top. I wish you all the good luck. I have some suggestions that I will, in fact, turn in, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Carol Hanna. Again, not only Carol Hanna, there are so many others who have a vested interest in the advancement of our children.
Yes.
I want to thank each and every one of you. We have now come to the end of our town hall meeting, hosted by the Bahamas High School Diploma National Review Commission. Commission members are tasked with gathering the views of the public regarding the 8 benchmarks high school students need in order to get the Bahamas High School Diploma. The views gathered here, your views, will help commission members in their work to determine whether the 8 criteria will be amended or remain the same. This is but the first of these national town hall meetings. They will be extended to other areas here in New Providence, as well as the Family Islands, from Grand Bahama all the way down to Inagua. This really takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. And with all the recommendations we've gotten, I always have this famous, this word I learned while in primary school, carpe diem, seize the day. So I want to thank each and every one of you, particularly our parents who took the time out to come to attend this town hall meeting. So you're encouraged to email your questions, concerns, and/or recommendations. Again, once more, to bhsdc@moe.edu.bs. This has been a production of the communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training. I am Vaughn Albury. Good evening.
You've been watching the Bahamas High School Diploma Review Commission's Town Hall meeting. Commission members met with members of the public to inform and discuss possible changes to criteria for 12th grade students to earn the Bahamas High School Diploma. This has been a production of the Communications section of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training.